Welcome everybody to our first joint context industry update for 2024. We're really happy to be back. As everybody knows, we do these quarterly or so, and this will be a good one because we'll get a view of year end, Adam, I guess, as well as a little bit of forecast into what we think will happen in 2024, which will be great. So before we get started on that, let me cover just a couple of things. One is we will be having our North America Summit in Oceanside, California this year. We're excited. We've got 200 people currently registered. We've got about 50 vendor organizations with an average of 2 people each, so about 100 vendor folks. And it'll be a great opportunity for networking, as well as an interesting agenda and content. We'll have keynotes from the president of IDC, Crawford Del Prete, as well as a number of really interesting panels. So if there's anybody on the call that is inclined, we certainly would welcome you to join. We know it's short notice. The next one, however, is not short notice. We want to make sure everybody's aware that our date for the European Summit is June 4th and 5th in Nordvik, same place that we had it last year. So we're really looking forward to that. I believe we've opened up the link for registration. If not, it'll be open soon. Oh, there it is. Yeah, not quite, but it's getting there. Second thing I wanted to cover is we've recently released a couple of additional research reports. As many of you know, we try to do 3 a year. And the last one we did was called the Innovation Enablement Guide. And the idea of that was to demonstrate how distributors are helping the suppliers essentially introduce and scale innovative technology. And as we know, there's a lot of that happening. So that was out in the September timeframe, and we've got a new report being released here in the next couple of weeks called Beyond Cloud Marketplaces, which really digs into a vendor's guide to digital platforms and what the distributors are doing, what the hyperscalers are doing, and how it all kind of fits together. So look for that. And where you'll find it, if you go to the next slide, is our Knowledge Hub. So on our Knowledge Hub, we have essentially everything we do. We have our research reports, we've got our webinars, our videos, podcasts, ongoing columns, data insights. So use that to access the GTDC information. With that, Adam, I'm going to turn it over to you, and looking forward to the overview.
Great. Thank you very much, Frank. Thank you for inviting us back to give an update. So Q4 2023, we came into it after a terrible quarter, minus 10%, which I've already presented on. And the outlook was pretty bad, actually. We knew that things were not going in the right direction. So we had a minus 8% central forecast, including telecoms, a minus 8.4 excluding telecoms. We normally put telecoms separately so that we can see what is going on in the heart of the industry. And telecoms number can swing things quite a bit. In any case, the good news is that we came in a lot better at minus 4.1% in terms of year-on-year revenues, and minus 5.4 excluding telecoms. So in the excluding telecoms, we were this magic number apart. We were minus 3% apart, which is where we like to be, plus or minus 3%. So directionally, we were definitely right in terms of what the quarter was going to look like. But I think that there were some huge efforts made during the quarter to get some old stock through the channel, a lot of promotions and help with the mobile computing side of things. And we saw that particularly come through in November and December. It was pretty good, actually, in the retail channel. There was some interesting things that happened there towards the end of the year. So this is what you forecast in majority, right down the bottom, 30% of you said at the last time when I asked you that it would be -5%, worse than -5%. So you were kind of, I think we were all thinking the same thing. But the people who got it right were the 25% of you who said between -3 to -5%. What happened in Q4 was that volume overtook value. That's good news. After months of volume being in very negative territory, it finally caught up a bit. And unfortunately, that was because of the decline that took place in the value business. There was quite a slowdown on the servers and storage. Wireless networking, which has been very strong, slowed down. The only thing which was really still very strong in Q4 was networking switches. But that's what happened with the value business. So we forecast a -6% on the value. It came in at -5, but it was on the volume side of things that the improvement really took place. And you can see that. I'll show you that in a few minutes when we look at it by category. When you look in, this is Q3 against Q4 for the different channels. You can see that Q3, which is the light green, everything was in negative territory. And in Q4, both SMR, the small and medium-sized reseller side of the business, and retail chain improved quite a bit. And retail had actually a really good quarter compared to last year. In Germany, gaming monitors came to life through the retail channel. We saw lots being sold, for example. It's sometimes quite nice just to get a bit of perspective on what's going on in the channel by channel of distribution. And so I've taken the last 5 years here to show you the percentage of what goes through the channel by different channel. So what you can see is that small and medium-sized reseller is gradually creeping up and is going towards the 40% mark. And we like to see that because that's really so much the value add of distribution. It's really getting to those small and medium-sized resellers. What the other important trend that's gone on, of course, is the peak in retail in 2020 and this growth in e-tail consumer in 2020 and 2021, but then kind of reducing in its amount as the value business came back in again and the more traditional small and medium-sized reseller and corporate reseller business really grew. So you can see that trend. And corporate reseller has stayed flat in 2023. It didn't have a great year, the corporate resellers, but it still maintained a very important share of the market. This is to show the relative movement of units, prices, and revenues on various hardware categories. And what you can see is that the price decrease has slowed down a bit. Last time we were looking at -5% in Q3. It's down to -2%. But we're well away from those years of 2021, 22, when the prices were going up. And one of the big questions about 2024 is what the price behavior is going to be. And there are various different sort of pressures on prices, both downwards and upwards, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end. But you can see that overall, a reduction in units, not nearly so dramatic as the decline in units we've seen in other quarters, leading to the -4% in revenues. And this is where we go into the nitty-gritty. I won't go down into that level of detail, but you will get these slides afterwards and you can look at them in more detail. But the really key thing to take away from this is that it was the volume categories which really outperformed expectations in Q4. So you can see that we were pretty negative on personal systems. We thought -13. In fact, they came in at -7. Overall, in the year, personal systems were at -16%. So in fact, there's definite improvement as we get towards the year end. And also peripherals did better, software and services and telecoms, all those areas there. And it was the infrastructure that came in the closest to the forecast, which we'd done. And this shows you the breakdown of it by what we call key sector, which is mainly industries, different industries in our database. But those are the differences there. When you look at it on a country by country basis, you can see this is the actual versus the forecast. You can see that we're pretty close in a lot of these different countries. You know, a couple of percentage points difference in Germany, 2% better, 2% better in UK, 2% in Italy. And it's Poland, really, which defied our expectations. There was a couple of things there. There was a huge mobile computing deal which came through partly in Q3 and Q4. But also there's a lot of activity going on there. And of course, with the new government in Poland, which is much more friendly towards the EU, it looks like those EU funds are going to get unlocked in 2024. So there's some nice potential there. But the comparatives are still tough, you know, when you look at the performance of Poland, which grew in 2020. I was looking at the numbers recently. It grew by 30% in 2020. I mean, remember that huge catch-up of technology which has taken place in Poland. And so when you see any number of sort of single-digit decline like this year, because it did go down overall in a year, it really is quite small compared to the growth that's actually taken place in Poland. So when we look at the full year, so a year ago, I think that we were getting our crystal ball out and we were looking at the year and we forecast 2% growth for the channel. That was including telecoms, and 1.8% excluding telecoms. And in 2022, we were like 0.7% within the January forecast. So we got it pretty good in 2022. In 2023, I think you can say we were royally wrong. And I don't think we were alone. I don't think there was anybody really who, as we started the year, thought that it could be quite as deep as it actually went in 2023. I do remember thinking as I came into the year that there were a lot of headwinds. And so and we were conscious of that, you know, with the war and the economic inflation being high and interest rates being high. And we didn't really know what impact it would have on the business. And I think overall, the most important factor that I've heard, and I'd be interested in what you say as well, is just that it's been the delay of projects, which has been the most important factor in 2023. We've not seen huge levels of bankruptcy, but we have seen lots of companies that have just said, you know, we've got to refocus ourselves and be a bit cautious with cash. So there we are. There's a big gap that we had. And then we asked you a year ago, and you were even more optimistic. I remember thinking I was being pessimistic when we put the 2% up. And most people were thinking it was going to be a better growth than it actually was in 2023. I've already shown that slide. So let's have a look at the vendors. This is a 2023 view of vendors with the columns being the size of the vendor. And this is the top 15 ranked in order of size. And the little green triangle being the growth rate. But what you see there is a lot of red because a lot of the volume vendors went negative. We know what a difficult year it was. It was a tough year, you know, in terms of the channel, probably the toughest since 2008, 2009. And so, you know, there had been a lot of purchases in the prior year. with the slowdown in business as well, this caused the negative numbers to take place. You do see a few exceptions. The imaging vendors have done very well. In fact, I saw Canon's results announced today. They've done pretty well in their results that they announced. Epson, Brother, and Lexmark all doing well in their sales through the channel. You look at the value vendors. This is the top 15 value vendors by turnover. Again, full year 23 against 22, with the blue column being the size and the green triangle being the growth or decline. You can see it's a mixed bag, with some growing really nicely and some declining. I do think that to understand this, it's better actually if you put multiple years on there, because if you see, for example, Dell at 0, it grew a lot in 2022, whereas the opposite was true with HPE. So I think that it's quite useful just to see the longer term trend. But nevertheless, this is what everyone lives and dies by, which is the year-on-year numbers. And so this is what it is. The star through the channel in these top 15 is Fortinet with 34% growth year on year. Red Hat also done very well, and VMware. So the software has done very, very well, and it is one of the big growth areas. I thought I'd show you what it looks like against the prior 3 years. So we have a classification to try to make things simple for people. So we have infrastructure, that's where most of the value goes, servers, storage, networking, LFD, computing components go into infrastructure. And you can see the 2020 was the terrible year when there was lockdown and no projects. 2 years of growth, 1 year of decline on the infrastructure side. Then we have personal systems, which is desktops and laptops, notebooks, and tablets as well. You can see, wow, look at that huge growth in 2020. And it's basically come right back on itself to the point that we're pretty much back where we were in 2019, which is interesting. But we still have a big base of laptops and particularly notebooks ready for refresh in 2024 and 2025. Peripherals grew a lot in COVID. That's monitors and headsets and printers and all those different products that go into peripherals, and had a, let's say, a retrograde year this year. And then you look at software and services. Putting the services in there is a bit of a dampener because the services have been going negatively. Software has been going a lot more strongly. I think in 2022, it was like 17 or 18% it grew software. And in 2023, around about 8 or 9%. So that's growing on growth. And we had a big moment for the context panel in Q4, which is that for the very first time in our history, software was the biggest category going through the context panel against mobile computing, which has normally been the number one. So this is not the first time in areas like the Nordics, which have been always the innovators and the areas of the business that have kind of been the most pioneering parts of Europe. But for Europe as a whole, it was the first time that software was the top category in our database. And telecoms has had a bit of an up and down with, and there's a bit of channel shift as well. In that -7, it was a decision taken by Apple to go direct. And so, you know, we flagged that up at the time because that type of decision really, you know, is kind of doesn't really reflect performance. You know, that's just a decision which they've taken. So that's a little history of actual compared to prior years. And look at the average prices, what a difference a year makes. So this is the total year, -8% on units, -1 on ASPs, -9 on revenue, compared to that. So what a difference a year makes when you think about it. I mean, we're nowhere near that in terms of ASPs. But also the good news is that the units are stabilizing, and you particularly saw that in Q4, that the units are stabilizing quite nicely. If we look to 2024 and what are the key opportunities, this doesn't change really. I think it changes marginally, but I think that it's very much directionally the way that we're going. So the drive to digitalize with the new AI functionality, lots of incredible opportunities there, I think. I'm going to talk a little bit more about particular areas of that in a minute, but that's the big one. There's public sector investment. The good news is Poland moving forward. Good news with the Spanish elections being resolved. They were hanging over us most of 2023, or yeah, because it took a long time to get that sorted. The product refresh cycle, we're actually now moving into, you know, the year when it's going to happen, we hope, particularly in H2. Although I was speaking to one reseller who said that it's going to be 2025, lastminute.com. I suspect we are going to see it really start to accelerate towards the end of this year. And then, of course, everything which everyone's so happy about, which is the better compares compared to 2023. If you look at the risks, I still do not feel very tranquil looking at 2024 when it comes to project investment in IT. You know, Germany is still the biggest part of our panel. It's nearly 20% of Europe. And I went to Germany last week for a conference, and everybody was saying the same thing: political turmoil, economic uncertainty, social upheavals. And one person I was talking to said he'd done surveys of CIOs who said that they were deferring expenditure and looking for new ways of spending budget. So I think that this IT projects, you know, cancellation or, you know, being suspended is still a big risk for us. There are, you know, pretty awful things going on at the moment still, with the war in Ukraine and with the, you know, the disruption of the Suez Canal and the war in the Middle East. So all of those things are potential headwinds for 2024. There's a bit of price uncertainty. So we've seen deflation, and now we're beginning to build in some price increases into our forecast for the second half of the year. We've put in a small increase, for example, in the mobile computing, where we think there is going to be an increase in average prices. And then there's the whole political uncertainty of 2024. I did talk about the election uncertainty in the US when I was over, and when I was, I think, talking to someone from the States recently, who said to me, we're used to dealing with chaos. But when I look at what's going on in the US at the moment, it doesn't fill me with great confidence about, I'm thinking about business. I'm not thinking about politics. I'm thinking about the stability that we need for business. There's going to be an election in the UK, the China situation, Middle East, and then this whole movement of the global south towards Russia. So all of those are sort of uncertainties which are there. So as I look at it, I think it is hard to predict exactly which way it'll go this year, but I will show you the direction in which we have, let's say, put our numbers. So last time I asked you what growth you saw in the channel. It was pretty much evenly split here between 1 to 2% and 3 to 5%. That was your view. So now I'm going to ask you again. Let's see what you think the likely growth of the distribution market is in 2024. I don't know if it would have changed since the last time that you voted. I'd be interested to see. So basically, we're pretty much, I think, going a little bit less confident than last time. More people going for the 1 to 2%. Yeah. Okay, so This is the history since 2015 with our minus 4.9% in 2023. And so we're putting out a forecast of around about 2.3%. So we might be considered to be optimistic because we're a little bit above that 2%, was 1 to 2%, which people voted for. Let me show you how that pans out by top sector. So this is the same slide as I just showed you earlier on in the presentation. So we're looking at a small growth in infrastructure of 1%, 5% in personal systems. So this is a combination of the refresh cycle, the increase in prices, and the potential. We haven't factored too much in there, but of the AI PCs coming through in 2024. We see a flat year in peripherals, software and services just marginally below this year, and telecoms. Now, telecoms is interesting. I'm going to ask you all a question about telecoms because today is the launch day of the Galaxy S24. And I've seen the launch video of it, and I was really mightily impressed by the AI features of it. And I do think it's going to become very, very popular. So do you think that AI smartphones are a game changer? Is that going to be something which in a year's time we're going to say, wow, we've seen big, big growth in the channel as a result of AI smartphones? It's a very mixed view. Most people not really knowing, and some people more saying yes than no. If you haven't seen the launch video of it, I do recommend it. It's really quite impressive, the things it can do. You can circle things on your phone and it'll go immediately to a search. So if you see a nice pair of sunglasses that someone's wearing and you want to buy that, you just circle it on your phone and it will go and find on the internet where you can buy similar glasses. It's got all this AI capability in it. The phone editing is amazing on it. The photo editing, sorry, is pretty amazing on it. The natural language capability, you can write a text in English and it will be translated into Spanish and sent off. You don't even have to worry about it at all. It just happens naturally. So I think that, and we know that Apple are going around snapping up AI companies like anything, and they're actually a little bit behind the ball game in this one, playing a bit of catch up here. But I think that, yeah, I think I would vote yes and say I think it is when I saw it, I thought to myself, this is actually a game changer. I have another question, which is, of course, the same one, really, but it's to do with PCs. Do you think that AI PCs are a game changer? And I'd be really interested whether you think that they are or not. Quite a bit more voting yes here, and still quite a lot of don't knows. I mean, I think everyone is saying, what are the use cases? We don't really know what the use cases are of these AI PCs. So how do we know if it's going to be a game changer or not? I think that's what a lot of people are saying. My thought is that, you know, none of us knew what ChatGPT could do, but my goodness, we quickly found out, and it was like the fastest adoption of technology probably in history when ChatGPT came out. So maybe it will be a game changer. Maybe when people know that you can do things like the functionality which we saw on the smartphones in the launch, maybe that type of thing will be a bit of a game changer. So here we are. This is what our forecast is. Sorry, this is by country, not by top sector. So this is the actual, this is the growth or the decline of 2023 in dark blue. And this is what we're saying by country. So we're kind of in that sort of 1 to 2% for most, except for rest of Europe, where we've got a bit more of an aggressive growth in there. But overall, we come to the 2.3% mark. And then I'm just going to end off by asking what you think is most going to impact the results of the IT channel in 2024. In 2022, it was, I think we just had the war in Ukraine had just started, and 2023, it was the economy. So what do you think will most impact the results of the channel? So you know the way these word clouds work, they sort of make, it gets bigger when more people use the same word. So at the moment, it's very, very diverse. Okay, we've got the economy is like coming out as the number one. Yeah, China. I'm going to ask Frank. Frank, do you think that we'll go serenely through the election year in 2024? Do you think that it'll all kind of just, you're just used to handling it, even though there's a lot of noise about it?
There is nobody that I know that's looking forward to the election year in the United States of America with the current candidates. However, I will say, after listening to a lot of the information coming out of Davos a couple of weeks ago, a lot of the CEOs were pretty confident that we were just going to kind of get through the election, and whoever won, and it wasn't going to be much of an impact either way. Whether that's just trying to calm everybody's nerves, or whether they really felt that way, I don't know. But I was surprised when I heard that.
Yeah. Well, that is reassuring. That is. And I mean, obviously, the American system is very robust, so it can kind of handle all sorts of different things. But it's a bit of a roller coaster when you watch it, isn't it? Okay, well, that's it. That's my presentation.